Well, it turns out my drone might be the best way to get somebody else's cows off my property. Well, I have finally reached the point where it is time to get the Bobtail Propane tank set in place for the last time. While I had my Bobtail Propane tank sitting on my trailer, I hauled it to town and I had it pressure tested with a large compressor. So now it's ready to be filled up.
Thank you to Mudwater for sponsoring today's video. We first tried Mudwater a couple years ago and we haven't stopped drinking it ever since.
We don't drink coffee, so this fits in perfect with our lifestyle, especially in the wintertime when it just feels like you need something warm to drink. Cedar drank it way more than I did, but what I noticed when I drank it was how I felt after I drank it. Mudwater is a coffee alternative with 4 adaptogenic mushrooms and Ayurvedic herbs with a fraction of the caffeine of a cup of coffee. You get energy and focus without the crash or anxiety.
Mudwater makes different varieties, one that helps you rise in the morning, one that keeps you focused throughout the day, and one that helps you rest at night.
I love that the lion's mane mushrooms are in there for focus, the cordyceps are in there for energy.
It's just like your regular coffee, but you can make it however you want.
I like it with nothing but honey. It tastes really good with honey. All of Mudwater's mushrooms and mycelium are 100% organic, contain 0 fillers, and are sourced from trusted American growers.
To get your first taste of Mudwater, click the link below and you'll get 15% off your first order. Is that it?
Okay, getting this tank set in place was probably the most important project that I needed to get done because it was kind of holding up a bunch of other stuff. For instance, where all the concrete blocks were sitting over there, that is going to be a new area where the goats are going to be penned up while I'm doing a whole bunch of work down here to this pasture. I'm now going to take this front pasture and tie it into the new land and have one large pasture. And then we're going to run a new fence line all the way up here so we can utilize as much of that yard for pasture. In the middle of doing all that, I'm going to bring this fence line all the way across over onto the new property so the goats can get up into the maples and just thin whatever they can eat I haven't fed them in probably close to a month, other than the fact that we try to give them something in the evenings to bring them back down to the house there. But they're just foraging and eating whatever they can find. They're so much healthier when they're foraging as opposed to eating hay or grass. So the goal is to have bigger pastures where we can utilize as much of what we can grow for our animals all around us right here. So. This is now going to go all the way down to the house, about 500 feet. This line down here will be used to fill any other propane tanks that we might need to fill around here. This is the Acme valve where the propane delivery comes in, but this check valve, the guy wanted me to remove that check valve so it didn't take so long to fill it up. It's been holding pressure for a number of days now, so it's ready to be filled. This maple tree right here is one of the oldest and largest maple trees on our property, and I want this tree to live a long, long time. Right here by this big tree is going to be the other side of the new pasture, and I want to have a set of gates and possibly a place where I can stack some hay right here. So I need to move some dirt around this big tree to create a flat spot. But there's also quite a bit of maple that needs to be piled up and burned before it gets too hot and unsafe to burn. But I have found that it is much safer to burn the maple when it's green and still wet, because when it's dry and it gets going, it can be a very, very hot fire. I tell my lovely wife at least once a week, nobody will ever understand how many miles I've walked in circles cleaning up the leftover brush and sticks around our property. The good news is that over the years and the number of brush piles that I've had to burn, I feel like I've got it down to a pretty good system. And as much as I love having the excavator, there's still just a tremendous amount of physical work required to make this stuff go away. After a day of constantly maintaining these brush piles and burning everything close by, the hillside looks great. That's the check valve that I had installed on that on the fill side, which was going to slow down the rate at which he was going to be able to fill it. So I took it out of there. He is probably 20 minutes from being here. I've done everything I can possibly do to make sure that this tank is safe. I put the proper fittings on there. I put the proper block off plate, that class 300 flange. I took it and had it pressure tested. I've done everything I possibly can to ensure that this is safe and okay, but I'm still a tiny bit concerned, I guess, because number one, it's expensive to have this thing filled. And number two, I don't want any leaks. So if I called a propane company and had them find me a tank this size, or if I bought two more tanks comparable in size to what I have, I would have well over $10,000, probably even by the time they had it all set up, probably even $15,000 or more $1,000 to have something like this. So because I took it upon myself to do everything the way it would have been done either way, I'm the one that's responsible for this. So naturally I'm a little bit concerned about it. But anyway, I've done everything I can do. Everything's torqued to spec. The flange bolts are all torqued. I did everything I could do. So he'll be here shortly and fill it up. So I bought propane from these guys for the last few years, partly because Nick, the driver, he's kind of become a friend of ours, He knows the drill up here when it comes to delivering propane, but what he just suggested that we do one last time is put about 50 gallons of propane in it, put some pressure in it, soap everything down one last time and just check for any leaks. Then we're gonna fill it up.
Yeah, but I didn't draw anything. No, in Utah they cut back a lot of stuff.
Yeah, they cut back a bunch.
I do. That's good.
Doing, he's probably spraying up right there.
Yeah. No.
I can turn a light on my phone and my camera. That's right. Oh, you can see it. It's right here. So Nick just put a little over 2,000 gallons of propane in the tank. I think it was 2,091 gallons. It's at 170 PSI right now. The next step is to trench from this tank all the way down to where the old propane tank is sitting. Then I'm going to tie that service into the old service and bypass the old propane tank, backfill and bury the trench and the gas line, and then move that propane tank up here. So the next propane tank is going to sit right next to this. I'm going to build a manifold to where I only have to use these tanks one at a time. It's overkill. I could probably sell that other tank and pay for what I've spent to build this tank. Matter of fact, I know I could. But the way things are going, it does not hurt my feelings at all to have a little bit more of the one thing that makes our life a little bit comfortable. So I jokingly said to my kids, no matter what happens, we got a warm shower, we got a stove to cook on. I don't have to cook on the wood burning stove. So this was a smart investment. And once the other tank is moved, we're going to have more parking down there. It's going to be safer. I never liked the idea of having that propane tank that close to the house and parking cars right there. I always worried somebody would bump that tank. And then once the diesel tank is moved, I'm going to build probably a steel structure around this these tanks with gates on it that I can actually lock. Because we don't have normal monthly utility bills like most people do, we still have major expenses like filling that propane tank that we have to do at least once a year. There are those that think that if you live off-grid, that maybe you don't have running water, or maybe you don't have traditional plumbing, or maybe you don't have a lot of things that we have here at our place. If you were paying attention in those early days while we were building the place, I realized that with a little bit of effort, we could have all the same amenities we had in town up here. So that was my goal. I didn't want Cedar and the kids to have to sacrifice any more than they were already going to have to sacrifice by living up here. So I seem to have the same fuel starvation issue with my excavator that a lot of the Bobcat guys talk about on forums as well as even on YouTube. If the machine is sitting flat, it's not an issue, but I'm pretty sure it's the pickup tube, because when I get on an incline, it will occasionally sputter, and the lower the fuel level gets in the tank, the worse the problem gets. So I think it is the pickup tube. I've already pulled the floor out of this once before, but I didn't go that far. I ordered a new fuel pump for it just to be safe. They're fairly inexpensive, but I want to check that pickup tube before I start trying to cut some of the new trails in up on the hillside where this thing is really going to be leaning. So. Home Depot was supposed to pick up that washing machine box and the washing machine inside of it about 1.5 years ago. I wasn't expecting to see that. I was expecting that this was the dip tube was damaged or something like that. I'm now beginning to think it was as simple as a hose clamp, but I'm not sure. I'm tempted to replace that poly tube down there, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it. So I'm going to put it back together, and I'm going to check the next filter in line and see if there's any other signs of anything. So I replaced the obvious Bobcat filter, and I ordered the new fuel pump just because it doesn't appear this one's ever been changed, and they're not very expensive. But I did not replace that back filter. Now I'm starting to think that that might be our issue. If I have about 1/2 of a tank or less, and I get on an incline, it acts like it's running out of fuel. And after getting online and doing a little bit of research, it sounds like this is a common problem with these excavators, with these Bobcat excavators. So I started at the front of the tank, and I made sure that that 1/4-inch line that draws off the bottom of the tank was sitting where it was supposed to be. I put a hose clamp on one little spot on that hose because it looked like it might have been getting air, but this is the next stop. So the fuel then comes to this filter here, and I'm thinking that it's probably this little inline fuel pump. And I had to run and go pick up some materials today, so I went down to the Bobcat dealership about 1.5 hours away, and I actually got the right part. There are aftermarket versions of this fuel pump for fairly cheap, like 20 bucks cheap, and this was 10 times that much, actually even more than that. But I felt like the fuel pump is a pretty important piece that needed to be Bobcat specific. But it's acting like it's getting a little bit of air in the system, but it's inconsistent. And I'm really hoping that changing this fuel pump solves the problem. But based on what I found online, a number of guys have had that issue with the same exact excavator. So let's get these changed out. Yeah. Maybe I'll get lucky and that's all it was, but that is going the wrong way. Well, it may have been a combination of a weak fuel pump and a bad fuel filter, but either way the machine runs amazing now. And right here is where I'm going to start the fence, tying the old property in with the new property. And I want to pull the dirt back on this little hill right here before I start putting railroad ties in the ground and stretching fence. As I moved dirt around last year, I feel like the hill got a little bit too close to the road. Thank you guys for taking time to watch our videos. It really means a lot to us. On our next video, we're going to get back to finishing up the shop. I'm going to hang some shiplap siding around the outside and hopefully get the bedrooms finished so they can be used. Thanks again. See you soon.